This is Behind the Mic by Kirkus Reviews, where the subjects are audiobooks and the actors who narrate them. I'm Joe Reed, and with me, contributor Leslie Fine. Leslie, welcome.
Hi, Joe. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, thank you. So, I know what 3 books you're talking about. Share with our listeners.
Well, I set out to get some thrillers this time around, and it turns out the 3 titles I came up with are a little bit they're more than just mysterious, spine-tingling thrillers. There's more to them. I think they're really worth talking about. The first one is called Best Offer Wins by Marisa Kashino, and it's read by Chia Court. The second is called The Sunshine Man by Emma Stonex, read by Edward Rowe and Meg Salter. And the third is Girl Dinner by Olivie E, read by Stephanie Nameth-Parker and Rita Amparita.
So, we're beginning with Best Offer Wins, and I have to tell you, I started listening to it. I just went through the whole thing. I could not stop.
That's what happened to me too. So, Best Offer Wins, yeah, the title gives us a little idea of what this is about. We have a young couple looking to find a house and they want to start their family. And our main character, Margot, is really focused on this at this point in her life. And the thing with this book is that she ends up going to rather shocking extremes. Once she finds her dream house, she will stop at nothing to get that house.
Exactly. This is set in Washington, D.C., and Marisa Kashino actually was a journalist here. I mean, I think she still lives here, but she was a journalist who wrote about real estate. So the woman knows of which she writes. And
Yes.
boy, there were moments as I was listening to this book where I kept thinking of Gone Girl.
Oh my goodness, that's so interesting. I thought the same thing. There were so many turns and things that I didn't expect, and I loved the way some things were kept from us and other things weren't. So then when things get revealed, there are surprises, even though it seems like we're right there at the protagonist's shoulder all the time. We're not necessarily. And it made it for a listen that you really couldn't stop once you got going.
And it takes many turns, but we understand that our main character, Margot, at first we think, oh, Margot is just obsessed about getting this perfect house. And suddenly we realize obsession doesn't quite cover what she is willing to do in her determination and what clearly becomes her utter insanity.
Absolutely. And the performance is so great. I think Chia Court does such a great job of just getting the nuances of this character. I was rooting for Margot at the beginning, thanks to just how relatable her voice was. And, like, gosh, I want you to be successful. This is great. And then all at once, as I was listening, I thought, she's kind of awful. Like, where is this going to stop? And the subtlety, and it may be just me projecting my thoughts, but I felt like Court, as a narrator, did something with her voice somewhere in there where I realized, oh my gosh, I'm a little scared of Margot now. I don't know where.
She's unhinged.
Yes.
I thought her performance, and also, of course, the writing makes that transition from somebody who's obsessed about getting a house to somebody who's unhinged.
Yes.
Really is subtle.
Yeah, and that subtlety, I think, was what made it kind of convincing, and you had kind of those satirical elements in there, I loved the details about the real estate market and how the listings sound and all of that. I thought that was great, but all of those things combined just made this one of those audiobooks that it was just I looked forward to pressing play every time I had a minute.
Yeah, and I think we also need to say this isn't about being unhoused and looking
No.
for a home. This is about achieving a dream, a
Yes.
very specific dream. They have money. They're bidding over
Yes.
$1,000,000 for a house,
Yes, and these houses sound incredible.
and they're gone. I mean, almost immediately. So why don't we hear a little so we can hear Chia Court's performance, which I completely agree was outstanding.
The clip that we're about to hear is from the very beginning of the book. So in this clip, we're kind of setting the scene. We learn that, Margot and her husband, they've been struggling to find a house, that they feel is suitable for starting a family, something bigger with a yard, that dream home. And so this clip gives you a little sense of her personality in addition to Court's skill as a narrator.
All right, this is Best Offer Wins by Marisa Kashino, read by Chia Court.
Now you've got the first bidding war out of the way, Ginny had said with a shrug, after informing us that it sold for $25,000 higher than our offer. It's like a rite of passage, and now we know we'll just have to be a tad more aggressive next time. But that was 10 next times ago. The next few bidding wars played out pretty much the same, except the numbers kept getting worse. We'd go to 1.1 million and fall just short. So for the next house, we'd stretch to 1,150,000, only for the winner to offer the same amount, all cash. After loss number 5, I froze my eggs just in case. At that point, we'd been in the apartment about 8 months and trying for a baby for nearly a year. Dr. Warner convinced us it didn't make sense to start in vitro yet. She still thinks I might get pregnant the old-fashioned way once the stress of the house hunt is over.
Oh, yes, house hunting is not easy, but especially when you decide it's paired with having a child.
Yes.
That you can't have one without the other.
Exactly. It really, makes for a high stakes life, really. It consumes her life.
Boy, does it ever. Chia Court really hasn't narrated much, but boy, I would listen to her again in a heartbeat.
I would too. I think she does such a great job with just personality and capturing that just how people sound in real life.
Did she get an earphones for this?
This one is an earphones winner.
Good, because she really deserved it. Okay, moving on to The Sunshine Man by Emma Stonex, read by Edward Rowe and Meg Salter.
Yes. Now, this one, we're taking definitely a more serious turn. This audiobook is essentially about revenge, but then there's more to it than that. One of our main characters, Bertie, is looking for revenge for her sister's murder. The man charged with that murder has just been released from prison. And as this audiobook opens, Bertie is on her way. I'm not giving away any spoilers here. She is on her way to get the ultimate revenge for the crime.
Emma Stonex also wrote The Lamplighters, which is about the disappearance of 3 lighthouse keepers, which is this really sort of psychological mystery, which was really pretty fantastic. And I think this is a really interesting book as well. Edward Rowe or Meg Salter, the narrators, they're both known actors, but neither of them have done a great deal of audiobooks. And I thought they did a really good job here.
I agree with you. I thought it was fantastic. It completely was one of those things where you were almost transported to another place because of, the beautiful accents and just, the grittiness of Edward Rowe's delivery. And Meg Salter is telling the story from Bertie's point of view. We're seeing what Bertie is up to. And it's almost as if she's numb in her actions, but Salter delivers it in a way that you get that sense, but she's not dull. She's not hanging back in her delivery. I just think she does such a good job. I kept thinking of her as just like this every woman. And it was another one of those things where I found myself often thinking, well, gosh, what would I do in her situation? And we learn more about her past as well as Jimmy, who is Edward Rowe's character's point of view. We learn about the whole backstory as we're moving forward. And you really do step into their shoes. And it really inspires a kind of empathy on both sides.
I agree. I'm listening to this book and I'm very taken by Bertie, having lost her sister, but also that background raised by her grandmother. And both Bertie and Jimmy come from poverty, but very different families. Both are
Yes.
flawed characters, but very different because Bertie was raised in a loving, stable home where Jimmy absolutely was not. And I think that's part of what Stonex is examining here, moments that are life defining.
That is a huge part of it. as I was listening, that really became the center of the story to me more than anything. Like seeing, how one's surroundings make them, form them. It was at times really difficult to listen to, but it really did inspire thoughtfulness as I was listening, which I really liked that. It was a nice shift. I enjoyed the satirical elements of the first audiobook, and then this one really kind of brought me back down to, really thinking about real world topics in a different way.
And how did you find the going from one voice into another, one perspective into another?
Well, that's a really interesting question because, at first I thought, oh, okay, I see the rhythm, I understand. But then we go back and forth in time so much. So on one point of view, you'll be, listening as, let's say Birdie is getting in her car and going, you know, she knows this man's been released from prison and she's on her way there. But then we'll shift and we'll go back to her early childhood memories.
Right.
And so you do have to be a little patient. I found, once you get used to that rhythm, you can pretty much figure out like, oh, see, I see where I am now. Now this is teenage Birdie, or now this is, now she's in that village where she's looking for Jimmy. So you do have to be a little patient. And I also found, and this is probably just me, but there were also, just the British phrases and idioms that I had to like stop and think like, wait, what did he just say? Or what did she say? But I love that. So it really wasn't a distraction as much as it was like, oh my gosh, what a beautiful way to put that, or what an
Right.
interesting way to put that. So, as far as the time jumping and going back and forth between the characters, you can easily get used to it because of, I think, the way these two narrators deliver the material.
Well, why don't we hear a bit? Who will we hear from?
So this clip is from Birdie's point of view. It is one of the most memorable opening lines of an audiobook ever. So this is from the very, very beginning of the audiobook. So you'll get a sense of her voice and how she's presenting what's about to happen in the rest of the audiobook.
This is The Sunshine Man by Emma Stonex, read by Edward Rowe and Meg Salter.
The week I shot a man clean through the head began like any other. I woke at the normal time, 6:15, and it was dark outside. I heard the sound of the heating coming on, a rattling chuckle in the pipes. Tom was still asleep, his bare shoulder pale in the moonlight. I put my nose in his neck to check he smelt the same, which he did, of gently scorched wood in the inside of the biscuit tin. I dressed in the dark and went downstairs. It was unnaturally quiet. I opened the curtains and saw there'd been snow in the night unexpectedly. It hadn't been forecast. The fall was piled inches deep on the garden bench and the bird bath was rounded off like a wedding cake. It never snowed in our Wiltshire village. Every other part of the country got it, but we never did. The children's sledges hung unused in the shed like bats. I switched on the radio. It was a DJ I didn't like sitting in for someone else playing twangy songs from Broadway musicals. I made a cup of tea. The milk was past its best before.
How do you not keep listening?
Right? That was it.
Yeah, you really, really have to. But I also have to say, in this chapter, I had to get used to how quickly, after that first sentence, she is just reading so quickly and ramming sentences together that I really checked my phone to see if somehow it got sped up. And it doesn't continue throughout the book. And I think she was doing this to give the listener a sense of the urgency of that day and the urgency that Birdie was feeling.
I agree with you. And I was relieved. At first I thought, oh my goodness, this is going too fast. Like I
Yeah,
can't possibly, keep up with this pace. But you're absolutely right. I do think it was kind of like until she gets on the road as part of her quest for revenge, she's really just like, I've got to get out of my home and do what I need to do. And then thankfully it does balance out and stay that way. The pace stays.
listenable.
Yeah, listenable. Yeah, it's a nice,
Yeah,
reasonable
agreed.
pace.
All right, and we're finally ending with Girl Dinner by Olivie Blake, and it's read by Stephanie Nameth-Parker and Rita Amparita.
Yes. So this is a whole other kind of a thriller. The main background, I guess I'll say, is a sorority house. And this audiobook is satirical, but it blends like real life topics with some more than horrifying elements. So it's an interesting take on all kinds of different topics.
Olivie Blake is an author typically of speculative fiction, and she wrote the Atlas Six trilogy. So I can imagine where this might end up.
Well, we have two protagonists, and of course, one is performed by Stephanie Nameth-Parker, and she's taking the role of a professor. And then we have, and her name is Sloane. And then our other narrator, Rita Amparita, is voicing a student, one of our students named Nina, who is trying to get into this sorority house. I feel like their voices are well suited to the characters that they're representing, that they're performing, and it goes back and forth between the two characters in a really, easy to follow way. It's just interesting. The dialogue is well performed. Both of the narrators do a great job with, comic timing. There are moments where it's like laugh out loud funny, but then there are other times turns that just are so abrupt that it's like, okay, I'm not sure that I believe how this is unfolding. So it's an interesting story with a lot of background kind of based in contemporary issues, but then the turn is a little bit, I find that it gets a little muddied over the course of the audiobook.
You said Stephanie Nameth-Parker voices the Professor Sloane. What's Sloane's connection to the sorority?
So Sloane is kind of getting back to work as a professor at this college, and she's been home with her new little baby, and so she's kind of working on that it's challenging to go back to work after she's had a child. So she's kind of getting back into the academic life, and so she's asked to take on the role of an academic advisor for this sorority. So she's gets involved that way. And then Nina is the student who is trying to get into this very prestigious sorority. And so we kind of see the both of them working parallel lives from a lot of the book.
Well, I know Olivie Blake is just not afraid of big ideas at all, and she is a really good, very witty writer.
Definitely. It's really, really some great dialogue, some great, really some thought provoking ideas, just and like anything from, academia to the politics of the workplace to women's roles, the challenges that women face in the workplace and in the world, all of those really important ideas. And I think the way the satire is formed is really a good idea. I think it's out there. It's kind of it's scary, but it's an interesting take. Like, I like how you said kind of like pushing the boundaries. It definitely does that. I wondered toward the end, went on a little too long. If it had been a little bit shorter, that it might have had more of an impact for me.
How long is it?
It's 11 hours.
Well, why don't we hear a little bit? So who will we hear from and set this up?
So this section is from a chapter that focuses on Sloane. We'll hear Nameth-Parker providing a backstory for Sloane's return to, the academic life. And this clip reveals Sloane's personality, and it also highlights how great Nameth-Parker is at delivering even just a simple word. I think she does a great job of really getting that personality of her character and the characters that Sloane deals with as well.
All right. This is Girl Dinner by Olivie Blake.
But of course, the whole benefits thing wasn't an issue because Max was on a tenure track. And even though at universities like these, they often put several people on a track to one tenured position that was essentially irrelevant, because Max was brilliant and that was the whole reason Sloane had derailed her career for his. Not that she had derailed it, that was the wrong word. She'd just, idly sidewayed into a suboptimal position, given that she didn't care for this kind of high-stakes environment. And scholarship, by Sloane's definition, had different, more cerebral standards, something that was ultimately an ecclesiastical divergence, a slight disparity between beliefs. Although, as Max had argued, not argued, it wasn't an argument, he was just kind of contrarian by nature, a slight roll of the dice personality-wise that really most people loved, Sloane had previously published a book that was exceedingly well received, albeit modestly, very modestly, distributed.
You are so right. That is tone perfect. And that is some really tricky prose that she delivers and just nails it.
And I think that's what makes it so great to listen to. It's a great audiobook. It kept me thinking even when I was finished listening to it. I kept thinking about it and thinking about what an interesting way to get these ideas across. And the performances were great.
And that says to me a good book club listen.
Yes, it would be a really good book club listen.
I bet it would be too. Okay, you have 3 good ones, Leslie. Thank you for sharing.
Well, thank you. It's so fun to talk about them with you.
It's great to talk to you as well, and I will talk to you next month.
Sounds great. Take care.
You've been listening to Behind the Mic by Kirkus Reviews. Behind the Mic drops on Thursdays, and if you follow us, we'll simply appear in your feed. And while you're at it, follow Fully Booked by Kirkus Reviews. Fully Booked is the podcast for book lovers. Every Tuesday, Kirkus editors and host Megan Labrise brings you author interviews, industry insights, and recommendations from the bestseller list. Find your next great book on Fully Booked by Kirkus Reviews. Follow Fully Booked and Behind the Mic on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, or wherever you get your podcasts. And then stop by kirkusreviews.com, where you can check out reviews for both print and audiobooks. Behind the Mic is produced by Jessica Lockhart. Michelle Cobb, Stephen Cummings, Leslie Fine, Alan Minskoff, Alex Ritchie, Laura Rossi, and Kendra Winchester are our contributors. Jennifer Dow is our editor with an assistance from Alicia Langerman, and Tom Beer is the executive producer. The music is William Ross Chernoff's Nomads 4-Way, and I'm your host, Joe Reed. Good listening.